go. Yay! So you've had a couple minutes of silence because I forgot to turn on the talk button. I'm recording this with Camtasia as well so that I can still post a copy on YouTube each time. So you should be able to have a copy on Blackboard, that is, on GoView via the Blackboard Collaborate module, as well as YouTube. Sometimes they're just easier to access on YouTube, so if you want to just go to YouTube for the archive each time, you can. That's why it's worded that way in the modules, is because Blackboard Collaborate didn't work for me almost ever last semester. So this semester it seems to be working better. And I hope that the screen sharing doesn't drive you crazy, but the fact is, if we do the little whiteboard dialog box that normally you can use with Blackboard Collaborate, it freezes when we try to use the textbook website. So bear with me, and hopefully it will let us continue this way, even though I know that when we're sharing, when we're doing the screen sharing thing, that sometimes it's hard for you guys to see. So go ahead and make it bigger, or tell it to stretch to fit, or whatever you need to do as we get started. So today we have quite a bit to get through. We're not usually going to have this much to do in one night, in one class. The midterm week that eCore required is a little bit earlier than I would have liked. But what I did do is there aren't as many weeks in the second half of the semester where we have 3 slices of things to do, like this week. So normally you'll just have maybe vocab and the first section of a lesson, or the second section of a lesson and the next vocab, or possibly both sections of the lesson but the vocab we already did the week before, or whatever, rather than all 3 components in the same night. So there are a couple more of those coming up, but most of them are before the midterm, and then after the midterm you've got some more breathing space. Also, the other reason that I ended up having to do that a couple times is because I wanted to give you that midterm week with a little less of a workload, so that you can really focus on the midterm more that week. So that week you just have a vocab module to do, and a couple weeks after that is the week when most schools are doing their spring break. We don't officially have a spring break for eCore, but what I did is I made a week, the week that corresponds to most of the Georgia schools' spring breaks, a little bit lighter also, so that if you want to kind of chill that week a little bit, you can. So we have a couple weeks that are purposely light, a few weeks that are a little heavier than I would like, and most weeks are just kind of going to be normal. The weeks when we have just a normal amount of stuff to do, we'll have time in the class to do some fun stuff with videos and a few other things. I have a lot of video resources that go with various grammar points, and then sometimes we'll just do some that'll be random. And I'm yawning. I yawn like crazy whenever I record these. I am recording this obviously at nighttime, but when I used to do classes in the afternoon, I yawned just as much. So it's something about talking on the tape. I used to yawn a lot in class, as in the classroom as well. So it's something about talking in front of people or something. Anyway, I hope it doesn't drive you too crazy. It actually drives me crazier than it probably drives you. I do have some emails that are still pending, so bear with me. When we're done with our class this evening, I'll be able to go attack some of those and get back to everybody. And this should be available on Blackboard fairly quick, or on GoView on the Blackboard module. There I go again. Fairly quickly. It will take a few hours for the YouTube version to show up because it takes quite a while for the export. And then on YouTube they do this processing thing that takes a while also. So you may not be able to count on those until the next morning each time. Voila! So I hope that everyone has been having a good week and a half so far this semester. And we're digging in today with, I forgot to cue up the page, with 9A and 9A 1 and 2. I just looked at that and forgot already. Okay. Don't get old because you'll start forgetting stuff. I promise. Okay. Just a little advice. Faut pas, faut pas vieillir, huh? Shouldn't get old. Okay, so this lesson we're talking about, oh, here we go again. We're talking about food, uh, specifically markets and shopping and that kind of thing. And then we'll get more into cuisine and actually eating the food a little bit later. And this is a really cool picture, actually. French markets look a lot like this. Oh, it's not a picture, drawing. French markets really do look like this. I probably have some photos somewhere of some French markets, but there are lots online too, so I'm sure you can find some. There were just a couple of things that I was going to underline with our vocab here. A main one is, you may or may not remember, and I forgot to look up where that is in the book, so I'll try to remember to look it up and put a note on the module. You may or may not remember way back when you learned articles, and one of the article types or groups that you learned was the partitive article, which has to do with consuming or buying or sharing, any kind of reference like that to a quantity of something. You're going to use un, une, du, de la, des, as in one or some. So it's any time that you wouldn't be using a definite article, le, la, les. So most of the time when you're talking about buying things, or when you're talking about foods or produce or any kind of aliment, food items that you might be buying in a market or that you might be eating or preparing, the vast majority of the time when you're referring to all that stuff, you're going to use the partitive article or the indefinite article. So again, un, une, des, du, de la. D'accord? So as you're practicing this vocab, however you like to practice it, whether you like to repeat it to yourself or use it in sentences or whatever, you should try to use it with a partitive or with the indefinite article. Now some of these they have set up with the indefinite article, so for example, un escargot, je vais le rendre plus grand, with this a little bigger. Oh, maybe I can't do it bigger. Oh, I have to do it bigger with this. Hey, my computer is a little... I'm surprised it hasn't... I don't want to do 400, that's huge. Oh, maybe that's better for you guys though, because of the screen sharing issue. Anyway, you can see over here, un aliment, un déjeuner, un dîner. Most of the time they do have it set up with the indefinite. But whenever they have a definite article, you should try to practice it with the partitive. So in this case, instead of la nourriture, ce serait de la nourriture. D'accord? They have des petits pois here, so that's very good. Let's see. Alors ici, au lieu de le bœuf, you should think du bœuf, n'est-ce pas? Des fruits de mer, etc. Du porc, du thon, de la viande. D'accord? Because again, the vast majority of the time that you refer to any of these things in conversation, you're going to be using the partitive or indefinite with it. So instead of le riz, what you're going to do, du riz, n'est-ce pas? So if you need to go back and refer to that, do so. This is a good time to go back and review it before we go any further with the stuff. This chapter, this is kind of driving me crazy. If you guys need it that big, then you can zoom in on your screens, I think, and get it well enough. Okay, so same thing with all this stuff over here. Oops. Same thing with all this stuff here in the image, dans l'image, in the drawing. Think non pas les fruits, mais des fruits, des poires, des oranges, or you can make it with the indefinite if you prefer. Une fraise, une pêche, une banane, etc. N'est-ce pas? Des pommes, des légumes, des pommes de terre, des oignons, etc. D'accord? So just keep focusing on the partitive or indefinite article with all of these things. Voilà. Alors, ce que nous on va faire, c'est de regarder le écouter. So here, what you might want to do is pause the video and actually repeat a lot of the vocab to yourself. If you need to, you can go on to the super site and you can use the pronunciation links on the vocab to practice, and then come back because we're going to do this activity where you need to listen to the items. So I'm going to pretend that you have stopped and gone and done that, and now you're back with me. Écoutez, Fatima et René se préparent à aller faire des courses. Ils décident de ce qu'ils vont acheter. Écoutez leur conversation, ensuite complétez les phrases. So Fatima and René are going to go shopping. They're deciding what they're going to buy. You need to listen and complete the sentences accordingly. So they aren't going to use exactly the same wording as you have here. D'accord? So just listen as closely as you can. Also, whenever we do these audio activities during the class, I'm going to be going at a fairly good clip. Don't let that make you nervous for quizzes or tests. On the quizzes and tests, I'll be going a lot slower. And you may or may not know by now that when you do the activities on the super site, they don't go dreadfully fast. And if they do, you can keep repeating it. But most of the time, they're at a pretty understandable speed. But on the quizzes and tests, we do read those quite slowly, so it'll be a good bit slower than I do for these kinds of things. But for these kinds of things, I want you to reach a little bit, so I'm going to be going a little bit faster than I probably expect you to be able to understand. And of course, on the quizzes and tests, you'll be able to replay the audio as many times as you need to, also within time limits. Anyway, listen to the passage. And I did not turn to the right page, so just one moment. 354, c'est ça? Voilà, très bien. Alors, as you listen to this, don't laugh at me. Fatima is a girl, René is a guy. Fatima is going to speak in a higher voice than René so that you can tell who is speaking when. So don't laugh. Alors, Fatima. Je n'ai presque plus rien dans le frigo. Il faut aller au supermarché. René. D'accord. Fatima. Regardons d'abord ce qui nous reste. Voyons. Il nous reste 6 carottes, quelques champignons, une petite laitue et 3 tomates. René. Parfait. Juste quoi faire une salade pour le déjeuner. Mais il n'y a plus rien pour le dîner. Dis, nous allons tout le temps au supermarché. Pourquoi ne pas aller au marché plus tôt? Il y en a un, place Victor Hugo, aujourd'hui. Il est là 2 fois par semaine, le mercredi et le dimanche. J'ai besoin d'acheter des pommes de terre et des oignons. D'accord. Moi, je vais acheter des fruits, des fraises, des pêches et quelques poires. Et j'ai envie d'acheter des fruits de mer aussi. Je vais te faire un bon petit repas. Alors, allons-y, au marché. Enfin. D'accord? So if you didn't get everything, that's absolutely fine. Okay? Get what you can. And as you're going through the second time, stop the tape, or stop the recording anytime you need to get your bearings. And of course, you can replay it. And you have this in your, obviously, on the super site so that you can actually just go do it on there as well if you prefer, or later to reinforce. So, deuxième fois, n'est-ce pas? Second time. Fatima. Je n'ai presque plus rien dans le frigo. Il faut aller au supermarché. D'accord. Regardons d'abord ce qui nous reste. Voyons, il nous reste 6 carottes, quelques champignons, une petite laitue et 3 tomates. Parfait. Juste quoi faire une salade pour le déjeuner. Mais il n'y a plus rien pour le dîner. Dis, nous allons tout le temps au supermarché. Pourquoi ne pas aller au marché plus tôt? Il y en a un, place Victor Hugo, aujourd'hui. Il est là 2 fois par semaine, le mercredi et le dimanche. J'ai besoin d'acheter des pommes de terre et des oignons. D'accord. Moi, je vais acheter des fruits, des fraises, des pêches et quelques poires. J'ai envie d'acheter des fruits de mer aussi. Je vais te faire un bon petit repas. Alors, allons-y, au marché. Voilà. So, of course, it just then dawned on me that you could just play the first one over and over instead of my actually repeating it more than once. So, um, every so often I forget that I'm not in the classroom at all. So you'll just have to bear with me when that happens. Usually I remember that when we're doing these, but I haven't done one since last semester, so voilà. Alors, on va continuer. Hein. Et ce que nous allons faire, c'est de regarder d'abord le verbe venir et les verbes qui sont un peu comme venir, et puis le passé récent, c'est-à-dire venir plus de. Next, we're going to look at venir. Oh, I just looked at the page number and then I forgot already. 362. Voilà. So we're looking at venir and verbs. Excuse me, verbs in the same family, basically, as venir. And we're also looking at a structure that we talk about, that we use called passé récent, which is venir de, to talk about just having done something. So we'll be playing with all of that in just a moment. Alors, regardons le PowerPoint. Voilà. Et dis donc, voilà. Alors, in 4A, you learned the verb aller. Now you're going to learn to use the antithesis of aller, basically. Well, kind of. Venir, which is another irregular. Lots of irregular verbs in French. And here's another one. There are lots of verbs that resemble venir also. So this takes care of actually quite a few verbs when you learn the conjugation for venir. Voilà. Nous allons regarder nous allons faire un peu de prononciation, but I also wanted to show you, we're going to go through the pronunciation here in a second, but I also wanted to show you, and if we have time, we'll go practice on it. This site called Texas French Grammar, which, if you guys will remind me, I will try very hard to remember. In fact, I think I already have it written down on my little post-it. Yeah, okay, good. I should then remember to put it on the modules for you or put it somewhere for you so you can get to it quickly. One of the coolest things about this site, Texas French Grammar, is that for every irregular verb that they cover, which they cover the vast majority of the irregular verbs, or the irregular verb types. So just like I said, venir, there's a lot of verbs that look like venir, right? But for all the irregular verbs, they have sound bites. So if you forget how to pronounce a certain irregular verb conjugation, you can always check it out on text, and they will have the audio for you to practice with or listen to refresh your memory and reinforce. So keep that in mind. It's a really good tool. Nous, quand même, on va faire la prononciation ensemble d'abord, and then you can go on to text whenever you like. So répétez s'il vous plaît. Je viens. Tu viens. Of course, you can stop the tape to give you more time if you want. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going at a pretty good clip tonight. Je viens. Tu viens. Il vient. Nous venons. Vous venez. Ils viennent. D'accord? So, just like you've always done with the word bien, you've had a nasal at the end because there's no muet or anything else coming afterwards to make you sit on the N, right? So the same thing with these. You're going to have a nasal because I don't have anything else telling me to sit on those. D'accord? So the S and T, S's and T are silent, and my N is making me have a nasal. N'est-ce pas? Now here I have a double N, so I'm going to sit on it. Plus I have an muet, basically, right afterwards. So when you have an muet or some other vowel or the rest of the word or anything like that after an N, you're going to really sit on the N, or the other consonants for that matter. And then nous and vous, which almost never give us any trouble pronunciation-wise, right, are really easy with the venir and with venir and its friends. So, encore une fois, je viens, tu viens, il vient, nous venons, vous venez, ils viennent. D'accord? Regardez les exemples alors. Mes tantes viennent de Nice. Viens vers 8 heures du soir. Tu viens avec moi au supermarché. Vous venez souvent au resto U. D'accord? Oops, sorry. Venir is very basic in the regard that it means to come, and you're going to use it exactly the same way that we use its English counterpart. So there are no surprises. You're basically going to use prepositions with it the same time that you use prepositions with the English one. There's no different connotation or anything about venir. It really does work exactly like come in English. So, except for this little thing that we're going to talk about, the passé récent, in just a second. But otherwise, just plug it in whenever you need to say that, and you'll be using it pretty easily, pretty quickly, because you'll be able to just use it the way that your head is already used to using the English one. Alors, venir takes être in the passé composé. Its past participle is venu. As you hopefully remember from your passé composé with être, the vast majority of the time when you have être in passé composé, you're going to make agreement on the past participle just as if it were an adjective. D'accord? So, vous allez regarder les exemples. Ils sont venus avec S vendredi dernier. Nous sommes venus ES, so obviously a female plural group. We don't have enough context, but that's what they're telling us that way. Nadine est venue chez moi, E. Es-tu venu trop tard? Masculine singular, n'est-ce pas? So if you need to go back and review that, this is a good time to do that since you're going to be using être with a lot of these, well, venir and anything that has venir in it, which you're going to learn a few verbs in a second that have venir in them. All of those take être. D'accord? So, on va continuer. Venir in the present tense can be used with de, and that means that something has just happened. We call this passé récent. So if I want to say, oh, I just saw Bill, or I just petted the cat, or I just got home from the library, vous allez mettre venir, conjugated, plus de, plus the infinitive of your main verb. So look at these examples. Examples. Je viens de prendre mon goûter dans ma chambre. I just had a snack in my room. D'accord? Main verb is prendre. Venir de is just giving it a time context. D'accord? Venir de is just saying that it just happened. And here at the beginning of using it, you can think of it as to come still. You can think, oh, I'm coming from doing such and such, meaning I just did it. It just came from having my snack. I just came from saying hi to Bill. I just came from da-da-da-da-da. D'accord? That's not always going to make sense that way, but if you want to think about it a little bit that way here at the beginning, sometimes that's helpful. Ma mère vient de partir. D'accord? She just left. Again, the key, the principal verb, the verb that is most important for meaning is partir. But venir de is giving us a tweak, a time context on it. Nous venons de regarder cette émission. We just watched that show. Regarder à l'infinitif, venons de, conjugué, da 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 da. Karine vient de manger à la cantine. D'accord? Manger, c'est le verbe principal, n'est-ce pas? Venir de, qui va nous donner un petit contexte temporel. So, venir de, conjugated, plus the infinitive. D'accord? If you're going to make any of these negative, then of course you would just make venir negative, and everything else stays the same, right? So if I say, oh, you just had your snack. You say, no, I didn't just have my snack. Je ne viens pas de prendre mon goûter. D'accord? And I would make negative around venir, just like I normally would. So you're always going to focus on the conjugated verb for your negations, right? Voilà. Venir can be used with an infinitive also to say that someone has come to do something. So what is the reason for you coming here? Oh, to study, or to say hi to you, or to watch TV, or whatever. So papa est venu me chercher. So even though venir is in the past tense, I can still put it with an infinitive. Why did papa come to pick me up? D'accord? Elle venait nous rendre visite. She used to come visit us. Why did she used to come? To visit us. Brianna just joined us. Brianna, are you there? Brianna, can you hear me? Say something, Brianna. Oh, yay, good. Cool, cool, cool. If you need to talk, then push your button and you see where we are. We're doing the PowerPoint for venir. And this semester, unlike last semester, I don't seem to be having any Blackboard Collaborate problems. So hopefully we will have lots and lots of consistent videos. So anyway, we're kind of in the middle of talking about venir. Did you need any more info about it, or would you like me just to continue? Okay. So this PowerPoint obviously is on Blackboard, or rather on GoView, so if you need to grab it there and review the beginning of it, then of course you can do that. So we're going to continue with our PowerPoint. We're talking about the fact that venir can be used with an infinitive to say why somebody has come to do something. So I can put the venir itself in any tense I want, okay? Papa est venu me chercher. Just as easily, I could put it in present tense, just like here I have it in imparfait. You could put it in future. You could do anything you want with it. And the fact that I have an infinitive afterwards means that that's why I've come, or he's coming, or I'm going to come, or whatever. Again, if you're going to make any of these negative, you're just going to focus on the conjugated verb, just like you always would anytime you're doing a negative. So, Brianna, be sure and hit your talk button if you need me to stop or if you have a question, because since I'm doing the share screen thing for you guys' video, I can't see the dialog box right now. Alors, to use venir with the passé récent, we talked about already. I don't know why they have that title here. I think that's a mistake, because now they're talking about all the verbs that look like venir and act like venir. So I said that venir takes être in the passé composé, and that any verb that has venir in it also takes être. This is always going to be the case. If you have a certain verb that is the stem for a whole bunch of other verbs, whatever it uses in passé composé, those other verbs are going to use that as well. So by contrast, you have tenir here, and any verb that's based on tenir is going to take avoir in passé composé, because tenir takes avoir in the passé composé. So when you did être with passé composé, they gave you a list of all the verbs that take être, and now you can add venir, devenir, and revenir excuse me, to that list. Regardons quelques exemples. Estelle et sa copine sont devenus médecins. So way back when we did être and passé composé in lesson 4, if I remember correctly, we said anytime you're using être with passé composé, you're going to make agreement. So Estelle et sa copine, féminin pluriel, feminine plural. I have es on my past participle, right there. Il est revenu avec une tarte aux fraises. I don't need any agreement because masculine singular, but again I'm using être. And again, if you're making any of these negative, you're going to use focus just on the conjugated verb. So instead of Estelle et sa copine sont devenus, ne sont pas devenus, n'est-ce pas? Il est revenu, il n'est pas revenu. D'accord? Tenir and all of its friends then, as we said, are going to take avoir, and they're going to be conjugated just like venir was, so same endings and same pronunciation overall. D'accord? So all of those you can just, I said that venir acts almost exactly like the verb to come in English. All of these can be trusted to act just like their English counterparts. So tenir, maintenir, retenir, all of those, there's no surprise as to what prepositions to use with them or anything like that. Just use them exactly as you would the English version, and there won't be any surprises. So you guys can just memorize all these as new vocab that shouldn't pose any problem. Although, remember which ones take être for passé composé. Et puis, this is a very good thing actually. Command form of tenir is used when you're handing something to someone. It can also be used figuratively. So, tiens, une belle orange pour toi. Here, I'm handing you an orange. Votre sac est tombé. Tenez, madame. Here, I picked this up for you. But it also can be used figuratively, as I said. So if I'm saying, oh, tiens, j'aurais dû chercher un exemple. Oh, like if you were passing a window or something, and your girlfriend was looking for a certain pair of shoes, and you said, tiens, voilà des chaussures comme tu voulais. D'accord? So it's kind of like an attention grabber as well. Or if you walk into a room and somebody's there and you're surprised, like, tiens, te voilà. You know, oh, here you are. And in that case, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just kind of a, as I said, kind of a verbal exclamation point almost. So that's kind of fun. At least I think it is. But I'm a language nerd, so I think lots of stuff is fun that you guys might not think is fun. Voilà. Some more stuff about venir in the passé récent. A lot of the time with venir, then anytime you're talking about the past, you may need some of these temporal adverb forms. So depuis, pendant, il y a, d'accord? To say something that happened a long time ago, use il y a plus a quantity of time, d'accord? So if I say il y a une heure, il y a plus a quantity of 1 hour, we were in the cafeteria. Il y a une heure, on était à la cantine. D'accord? Il a visité Ouagadougou il y a 2 ans, 2 years ago. Il y a plus a quantity of time. D'accord? If you use depuis, pendant, il y a for a specific time period in the past, you're going to use passé composé most of the time. And pendant is going to be used more often for this than il y a. Il y a is almost always when you're talking about a period of time before the present time. D'accord? But if I want to say that something happened for a certain amount of time and the beginning point and the end point were both in the past, then I'm going to use pendant. So Salim a fait la vaisselle pendant 2 heures. He washed dishes for 2 hours, and that 2 hours, probably the beginning and the end of that period of time, was in the past. So it might have been, from 6 to 8 this evening. Ils ont voyagé pendant 1 mois. D'accord? And normally this means that the end of their voyage is in the past also. D'accord? Alors, depuis is normally going to be plus a specific point in time. Sometimes it can be used plus a quantity of time. So I think they're going to show us examples for both. Alors, oh yes, and the one thing to remember with this, I should have underlined this, is that normally when you're using depuis, quite often you're going to have the verb in French in present tense. D'accord? So in English I would say something like, she has been dancing since she got to the party, which is a past construction technically, but in French I'm going to use it in present because it's still ongoing. Alors, elle danse depuis son arrivée. D'accord? Nous passons l'été au Québec depuis 1998. Pardon. We've been spending our summers in Quebec since 1998. So it's still ongoing. I'm using present tense. Wow, I can't talk all of a sudden. Et puis, c'est la fin du PowerPoint. Attends, voilà, très bien. Alors, on va pratiquer un tout petit peu. Et ce qu'on va faire, c'est de... non, on va aller au livre. Très bien. Alors, attendez, parce que... il fallait que je cherche... Where did I put my little lesson plan? There it is. Ok. Alors, à la page 362, ce qu'on est déjà, et puis, on va regarder l'exemple, je veux dire l'exercice. Voilà. Qu'est-ce qu'ils viennent de faire? En fait, I want to do two first, actually, is what I was thinking, because first we're going to just look at conjugating and using them, and then we'll go to the passé récent. So first we'll do this. Et je vais le rendre plus grand. Voilà. Ouh, ça c'est super grand, hein? Voilà, c'est mieux. Très bien. Je vais faire que ça soit plus... Voilà. Très bien. Alors, but probably on you guys' split screen, that's still not quite big enough, so peut-être que c'est mieux là, comme ça. Voilà. Alors, they're giving us the verb in each case. All we have to do is conjugate it, but remember, we're conjugating it passé composé. Now, just for the heck of it, we're actually going to look at the present tense too, just to practice. So, la semaine dernière, and if you're playing the recording later, you can pause this whenever you need to. So, la semaine dernière, Georges. If we're talking in present tense, don't forget, c'est revient. D'accord? We're in past tense, so what auxiliary do we need? Être ou avoir? Être. And être for Georges, être, je dis, Georges est. And then remember all of my ENIRs, like venir, tenir, and all their friends, are going to end in U. D'accord? Alors, revenu. D'accord? I don't need any agreement because Georges is a guy and he's singular. Marc a déménagé, mais je... So anytime that's a negative, or an interrogative for that matter, and you're playing with a new verb or a new structure or whatever, if you need to, stop and do it in steps. D'accord? So just like with the last one, where I stopped us for just a second and said, stop and think about what the auxiliary is, then how do you conjugate it for Georges, then what does your past participle look like? You can do the same thing if there's a negative involved or whatever. So instead of worrying about the negative right away, just think about how to make your verb. So what verb am I going to use? Avoir ou être. Retenir. We said that tenir and all of its friends are going to use avoir. So normally that's going to be a, right? I don't know why I say normally. Every time it's going to be a, because that's the correct conjugation for avoir avec je. And then retenir, it's going to look a lot like revenu. So retenu, d'accord? And then I can stop and go, okay, now what do I do with my negative? So don't forget, I'm only, at least the vast majority of the time, going to put my negative around the conjugated verb. And in this case, our conjugated verb is avoir. The easiest way to remember which verb is the conjugated verb is to think about what verb would change the most here if I changed the subject. So if I changed je to tu, I'm going to change this whole form for avoir, right? But retenir is going to stay the same. So another way to think of your conjugated verb is the active verb, okay? So you're going to put your negative around the active verb, and if you need to do every single little step, as in leaving your little apostrophe fun for last, you can totally do that too. So put in your negative, and then stop and think, what else do I need? Oh, I need to drop my E. And we're done. Je n'ai pas retenu sa nouvelle adresse. J'ai rencontré Martine ce matin. Elle. So devenir, what does it have as its root? Venir. So it is going to take être in the passé composé. And être for elle is a. N'est-ce pas? Elle est. devenu. And what do I need on devenu? N'est-ce pas? C'est très bien. I should scooch this over and then I probably can see the dialog box. Going to try to see the dialog box. There it is. Okay. So if you have any questions or anything, Brianna, now I can see the dialog box. Alfred va avoir 100 ans. Oh, t'avais une question. You did have a question. What's your question? I'm sorry, I wasn't looking at the dialog box. Is it too late for your question? I hope not. Oh! Oui, en fait. There are some places where you'll see it referred to as le passé proche. I think people do that because they get students hepped up on the futur proche, and then they say passé proche so that it's kind of working in tandem in the students' brains, because they are very similar. And time-wise, they're just about the same distance from the present. They're each about the same distance from the present. So I think that's why sometimes people call it that. And probably more often people say passé récent, but you can certainly think of it as passé proche. As long as you know that when you hear somebody say passé récent, that they mean passé proche, and vice versa. So yeah, that's totally cool. That's funny, I haven't heard anybody call it that for a while, but yeah, it might be something that we used to call it, actually. I think several years ago. I heard it more than I do now. But yep, that's exactly the same thing. Voilà. Alors, Alfred va avoir 100 ans. C'est parce qu'il... I almost forgot to put this in present tense. So, we have maintenir. Tenir is my root. What am I going to need? Avoir ou être? Avoir. Alors, il a... Oh, that's funny, it didn't type right away. Il a maintenu un bon rythme de vie. C'est un bon conseil pour nous tous, ça. Hier midi, Charles et Antoinette. So this time I have venir. What am I going to need? Être, avoir. Alors, ils sont. Et puis, venir. I'm going to end it in you again. Venu avec S. Alors, Marie-Louise et Roland. Pardon. Au passé composé, encore une fois. Alors, devenir, vous avez la racine venir. So, what do I need? Être ou avoir. Être. Encore une fois. It's going to look a lot like the one right above. Alors, Marie-Louise et Roland sont devenus. Oh, I forgot to stop so that people could think. So, again, if you're playing the recording of this, be sure and pause it instead of letting me give you all the answers. Quiz yourself a little bit. Normally I will have time to pause more between things. It's just because we have so much to cover tonight that we're going at a pretty good clip. Alors, la fille d'Albert, là encore vous avez être. Alors, elle est. Oh, I forgot we were doing negative, pardon. We'll do it in steps again. Just for those of you who would like to do that, then that's great. Alors, et puis, qu'est-ce que vous allez me donner pour venir? Venu avec because we have être. So again, anytime I use être in passé composé, well, the vast majority of the time when I use être in passé composé, I'm going to make agreement. Just as if the past participle were an adjective, right? So remember that. And go back to lesson 4 if you need to remind yourself. Alors, maintenant, pour mettre le négatif, again, you can do it in steps if you like. Ne, and then, oh, right, I have two vowels next to each other, so I'm dropping my muet. And then the second part of my negative, ne pas, oh, pardon. Voilà. Elle n'est pas venue le voir le mois dernier. Alors, Mélanie, c'est le dernier. Mélanie, et puis tenir. So, what are we going to use? Être ou avoir. Alors, elle a. Et puis tenir. Again, I'm ending in you. Tenu. son chien dans ses bras parce que les enfants avaient peur. Voilà. Alors, le prochain qu'on va faire, c'est justement pour le passé récent ou le passé proche, comme dit Brianna. Et attends, parce que c'était numéro 1. Voilà, activité 1, à la page 364. And again, we're going into the text and into your book for this. And let me go grab the dialog box so I can see if anybody else comes or if Brianna has a question. Voilà, ok. Alors, vous avez le modèle. In each case, we're going to look at the picture and tell what the person just finished doing or just got done doing, as we say in American. Use venir and de plus your infinitive, and you're all set. Alors, regardez vous allez voir le modèle encore une fois, juste pour souligner, Julien, faire du cheval, I'm going to conjugate venir for Julien, and I'm going to insert de, and I'm done. Alors, Julien vient de faire du cheval. Très bien. Numéro 1. Monsieur et Madame Martin allaient au concert. So, just for the heck of it. Oh. Qu'est-ce que vous allez me donner pour venir? Salut Stéphanie! Oh, il y a quelqu'un d'autre maintenant. C'est super. Stephanie, if you have any questions, yell. And use your talk button or whatever. And I'm trying to remember to keep the dialog box visible on my end so that I'll notice if anybody has a question. So we're almost finished up with venir. So do you have any questions about anything that we might have already covered? Or would you like us just to continue? Okay, we'll let Stephanie get her bearings. Alors, Monsieur et Madame Martin, we're talking about passé récent. I'm going to use venir, conjugated for Monsieur et Madame Martin. Alors, ils viennent. And then I'm using de, right? And just like we did before with the negations, if you need to do every little step and then go back and clean up, do that. So I've got venir de, I've got aller coming up, I've got au concert, and then I'm going to go back and clean up. So what else do I need to do? They have two vowels next to each other. There should be some song about that. Two vowels next to each other, drop the E. That's not a very good song. Viennent d'aller au concert. D'accord? So again, if you need to do things in little steps, please do that. Ah, c'est très bien. Merci Stéphane. Merci Brianna. D'aller. Alors, vous, dîner. Alors vous, qu'est-ce que vous allez me donner pour continuer? Vous avez une idée? So I'm going to use venir. I should have capitalized this. Voilà. Alors, venir for vous. Venez. D'accord? Then, in order to use passé récent, I'm going to insert de, n'est-ce pas? And then, dîner. Très bien. We just, or rather, you guys just finished eating dinner, or just had dinner, or just dined, or however you want to say it. Alors, nous. Again, I'm going to insert venir. So, venir for nous, au présent, venons. And then de, so that I can have my passé récent. Jouer. I don't have to do anything different this time. Au tennis. Voilà. We just played tennis. D'accord? Now I can, it's a little funky, but I could use these in negatives. I mean, there could be some situation where you wanted to answer somebody with the negative in passé récent. You said something like, oh, did you guys just get done playing tennis? No, nous ne venons pas de jouer au tennis. It's a little funky, so it's probably not going to arise that much, but you could technically put these in negative. In which case, you're just going to focus on the conjugated verb, just like you always do. So just for argument's sake, for an example, we'll go ahead and do one. Nous ne venons pas de jouer au tennis, and everything else would stay the same. But again, it would probably be a pretty specific situation for that to be necessary. But it is grammatically correct and everything. Alors I just went shopping. Pardon, je vais majuscule. Alors, venir, je viens. And then, how do I make it into passé récent? De faire des courses, n'est-ce pas? Now, one of the things that we talked about in the PowerPoint was that if I take the de out, I can put venir in any tense I want. In fact, I can use the passé récent in other tenses also. Most of the time it goes into imparfait. I'll try to remember to show you an example of that. But if I take de out of any of these, instead of it being passé récent, all of a sudden it simply is stating the reason for someone's arrival. So if I take the de out of this one, so bear in mind this is not the correct answer for this cue. But if I say, oh, pourquoi vous avez pas dit que j'ai sauté le dé? You guys didn't even tell me I skipped the day. Gosh, I thought I could depend on you to steer me right. Voilà. My 52-year-old head that can't remember to put a preposition in. Je viens faire des courses. So in this case it would be I'm coming to go shopping. D'accord? Oh, what are you here for? Oh, I'm coming to go shopping with Joe or whatever. D'accord? So if I don't have the de, it's simply stating the reason for someone's arrival. And in that case, I can put it in almost any tense I want. And I was going to show you an example. These were some examples for the 1002s, so I'm going to delete that. This gives you a couple of ideas. And in fact, when I use venir that way, I could put it in any tense I wanted. So if I say, oh, why did Bill come? Oh, he came to eat with us. D'accord? So in this case, it's the purpose for the next activity, the next action. Well, he came to eat, literally, with us. D'accord? Whereas, if I'm putting passé récent in the past, I can actually do that. 99% of the time it goes into imparfait. So if I say, oh, I saw Josie today. Oh, what was she doing? Elle venait de, je sais pas quoi, elle venait de manger, par exemple. I don't know why all I can think of today is manger. So if I'm describing what somebody had just done when I saw them, or when I talked to them, or something like that. So the vast majority of the time, passé récent is going to go into in imparfait. Excuse me, if you need to talk about it in the past tense at all. So again, if it's without the de, then it's just talking about, get it all the way. It's just talking about what the point is for that person to come. Okay? Why did he come? Why did you come here, etc. But with de, talking about passé récent. Alors voilà, très bien. Oh, il est 9 heures. Il est temps de continuer. We're running a little bit late. So we're going to go through the other PowerPoint a little more quickly. Oh, and I just wanted to, I think this was before Brianna joined me, and for the moment I can't see the dialog box, so if you have a question I'll see it when I get back over there. This is a site that I will try to remember to post on our modules somewhere. It's the Texas French Grammar. This site is great for many reasons, but one of the big reasons is if any of you need to remind yourselves how to pronounce any irregular verbs, they always have sound files for all the irregular verbs. So we just did faire in the 1002s, and faire is notoriously hard to pronounce when you're first learning it. So that's a really good example. But this one also, these also, venir, if you needed to come and remind yourself how they sound, then you can always come here, and they always have sound files for them, so that's really handy. Alors, ce qu'on va faire maintenant, c'est A, de, devoir, vouloir, pouvoir. And I need to see, I think I set the Blackboard Collaborate to stop at 8:15, at 9:15. I probably should have set it for later just in case. Well, if it ends, we'll do another little tiny one or something that I'll post so that you guys can see the rest of the lesson. Voilà. Alors, tu me bloques là, toi. Voilà. So, in the PowerPoint, I can't see the dialog box. So, use your speaking button if you need anything. Ici, on va regarder encore de nouveaux verbes. So again, as I said, most of the semester we're not going to be doing this much in a week, but we have a couple of these heavy weeks in the beginning of the semester just because we have to be ready for the midterm week, which is coming a little bit earlier than normal. So in exchange, we have a couple of weeks that are a little bit lighter coming up to after the midterm week and a couple weeks after the midterm week. So you will have some chance to breathe a little while later. Devoir, vouloir, pouvoir, more new irregular verbs that you need to memorize and practice all the forms. These particular verbs are almost always, or at least very, very often, used with other verbs. And the vast majority of the time when you guys have two verbs working together, the second one's in the infinitive form. So that's what's going to happen with these. If you need to use them with another verb, then the second verb's going to be in the infinitive. And just like we've been saying, if you're going to put negative or anything like that, you're going to focus on the conjugated verb, which is the first one, devoir, vouloir, pouvoir. D'accord? So devoir, to have to do something, to be obligated, and also to owe, as in to owe money, or maybe owe time to someone, or owe a debt, a figurative debt of some sort to someone. Vouloir, to want, or to want to. Pouvoir, to be able to. D'accord? Pouvoir is almost never going to be able to be used on its own. The only time you're going to hear it on its own is if you're simply answering somebody and you say, yes, I can, or something like that. Otherwise, it's always going to be with another verb. So we'll see some more examples. So these are a little different. Devoir takes its own little way, and vouloir and pouvoir, pardon, look pretty similar. So you can kind of look at those two that particular pattern, and it will help you. But devoir will kind of be off in left field. Alors répétez s'il vous plaît. Je dois, tu dois, il doit, nous devons, vous devez, ils doivent. And again, we're going really quickly, I know. If you're playing the recording later, be sure and just pause it so you've got time to repeat. And I'll try to go a little bit slower for the girls that are in the class right now. So for vouloir et pouvoir, je veux, tu veux, il veut, nous voulons, vous voulez, ils veulent. D'accord? Pouvoir, je peux, tu peux, il peut, nous pouvons, vous pouvez, ils peuvent. D'accord? So anybody who learned that boot construction way back when you were first starting French, some people laugh at that thing, but honestly it still helps a lot. And that's simply, we used to draw an actual boot on the blackboard and show people this, but you know where you have toi, par exemple, and vous, and oh, can I highlight on there? Neat. This is taking too long. Oh, whatever, you know what I mean. Oh, I know what. We'll just do this. Voilà. Très bien. So, nous and vous always resemble each other, right? And the other, get out of the way. And the other four normally resemble each other too. This specifically, we showed you this, or someone probably showed you this with ER verbs, but you can see that this actually works a lot on irregulars, so it can help you remember with verbs like these three that you still have some patterns that you can depend on here, okay? So, and if you want to, you can draw some little laces right here with a bow, and then that makes your boot, if you don't know what I'm talking about. I love the verb boot. It's very helpful. I don't use it anymore. I haven't used it for a long time. So anyway, you have these four forms that are showing a clear pattern, and you can stick them together in your head better if you've got them some kind of a schema to put them together with. So you can do the same thing with vouloir, pouvoir, etc. N'est-ce pas? And a lot of other irregulars, actually. Alors, on va continuer. In past tense, these all take avoir in passé composé, and you have some irregular past participles here. Du, with a circumflex to distinguish it from du, the partitive article or preposition. Voulu and pu. D'accord? And all with avoir, as we said. Devoir can be used with an infinitive to mean to be obligated to do something or to have to do something, or it's often translated as must. On doit manger tous les jours. One must eat every day. Je dois faire mes devoirs. I have to do my homework. I'm obligated to do my homework. When devoir is followed by a noun, that's when it means to owe. D'accord? So we talked about this very briefly. Tu me dois 5 euros, par exemple. Il doit sa vie au médecin. D'accord? It's often used in the passé composé to talk about what must have happened or what someone had to do. Alors, ils ne sont pas arrivés, blablabla. Ils ne sont pas arrivés chez eux, ils ont dû avoir un accident. They must have had an accident. So even though we say this in English and French with this obligatory structure, this this connotation of obligation, it actually is something we're not sure of, right? We're just guessing and we're pretty sure. Or, the person speaking is afraid that that might have happened or is pretty sure that might have happened. It's not something we're sure of at all, even though we're using this really strong terminology to talk about it. Likewise, if you're talking about something that you already knew, that you know what the scoop is, then it can simply be an obligation in the past. Elle n'est pas venue parce qu'elle a dû travailler. She had to work. D'accord? Nous ne devons parler en classe. If I want to use it with an infinitive, then it's to be obligated to do something or to be supposed to do something. We're not supposed to talk in class. We shouldn't talk in class, etc. You were supposed to arrive. Vous deviez arriver. And the clear meaning is that they didn't, right? À 8 heures. Vouloir is used with the infinitive dire to mean. So nous voulons dire, we want to say, which basically means we mean exactly the opposite. Ça veut dire, you guys all should have heard that expression. It's one of the ways that you can ask what something means, right? Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Alors, ça veut dire cookie en français, biscuit. D'accord? So it's not literal anymore. It just means to mean. Alors, encore des exemples. Elle devait être là. Elle a dû parler à son prof. She should be here. She was supposed to talk to her professor. Enfin, j'ai pu vous retrouver. I finally was able to find you. Vouloir bien can... that's a funny way to put it, willingness. A lot of the time when French people say, oh, oui, je veux bien, it's kind of like, oh, gladly, or yeah, I'd really like to, or something like that. So it just puts a little different spin on vouloir when you say vouloir bien. Alors, pardon, oui, je veux bien prendre la glace. I'd really like to have some. We'd love to eat with you. Nous voulons bien manger avec vous, par exemple. D'accord? So, vouloir bien. Most of the time, that's not going to be seen in negative. Vouloir is often used in past tense, with a negative, as in he didn't, or he refused, or etc. Alors, il n'a pas voulu parler, we would translate it as he refused to talk. Nous n'avons pas voulu aller chez lui, we refused to go to his house. N'est-ce pas? These little side usages for vouloir aren't quite as important. I don't want to say they're not important, but they're not quite as important as the structures that we saw a couple of slides ago with vouloir plus an infinitive. Those are probably the key ones that really you're going to see vouloir used the most often. Pouvoir can be in passé composé to talk about something that we would translate as managed to do it. So, nous avons pu tout finir. I can just as easily say we could finish it all, we were able to finish it all, or we managed to finish it all. D'accord? J'ai pu parler à l'avocat. I was able to talk to the lawyer, or I managed to talk to the lawyer. D'accord? You can translate it either way. Voilà. Alors, est-ce qu'on a le temps de regarder vite fait? Je vais voir le dialogue, see if anybody had questions in the meantime. Oh, Brianna must be talking about Tex. Tex is a great site, and I almost always refer to it at some point during our class times, just because I think it's nice to look at something different than your super site and everything all the time. So it can be nice. Also, it's really usually a good idea to look at things in a slightly different context. If it looks new and kind of, it can be a different format, it might be a slightly different approach than what the book had given you. And it's nothing against the book, it's just that sometimes that can help you cement things better if you look at somebody else's perspective of how to present a certain grammar point or something. And Tex is really good at kind of filing down the grammar points so that they seem, I think, quite clear. Now, just like with any sites that you guys want to use, if you come across any sites that, and I'm going to post my, where is it? I actually have a page that I've kept links on for a long time that I will post somewhere. I was in the process of checking all the links. There are several links that are broken. But I might just let you guys let me know if there are broken links on it. But if you happen to use this or text or whatever, if you find yourself in a site, now I can't find the dialog box. There we go. If you find yourself on a site, Stephanie, don't feel bad because Brianna can tell you I was fighting with Blackboard Collaborate the entire semester last semester. I just can't even say how few videos actually worked out because everything kept breaking. So don't even worry. We all have our own learning curve with all this stuff, so don't worry. But what I was saying was any of these sites that you go and work with, if it's for whatever reason doesn't seem to be working for you. It could be that you just don't like the look of it. It could be a functionality issue. Maybe the links are slow or whatever, or the activities load slowly. It could be that you think it's really confusing. Maybe the grammar explanations are really confusing, or maybe it's using lots of vocab that you haven't seen before because it's based on a different book or something. So any of those reasons or lots of other reasons, if it just doesn't seem to be working for you or it's stressing you out or confusing you unduly, then leave it. It does not mean it's a reflection on your French or how you're doing. It's simply that that site is not a good tool for you personally. So just don't forget that. That's the only danger with going and using outside sites is it can be discouraging sometimes. So don't let it do that. If it isn't working for you, it isn't working for you. It just means it's not your favorite site, and that's totally fine. There are a lot of sites out there that are made by people who really don't know French very well or can't really do the stuff that they need to do for the site to work well. So there are a lot of hit or miss sites out there. So just saying, I'll probably say that a million times this semester because I do usually suggest that people look at outside sites for just like a chain. Ça change les idées, comme on dit en français. So I'll probably keep saying that to remind everybody. So I think that our class is going to end in a second because I put it to end, I think, at 9:15. And I don't really know if it lets us keep recording. I guess we'll keep on going, and if it lets us stay in, then cool, and if not, I'll put another little piece somewhere so that we can finish the activities. So I actually want to go to text, just for the heck of it, to practice with vouloir, devoir, venir, vouloir, devoir, pouvoir. And another reason text is really cool is that their index is really, really easy to use. And I can just hit verbs and modal verbs. That's what those three verbs are called. We have modal verbs in English too. We just don't think of them that way. So here again, you have audios of all of the irregulars so that you can remind yourself how to pronounce them if you don't remember. And there are audios for a lot of the vocab on the supersite, but sometimes it's hard to find. So specifically for irregular verbs, they always have the audios on text. So that's a really good place to come and find it. And then, as I said, it just gives you, I'm going to make this a teeny bit smaller again so that you can see it better. It just gives you a slightly different perspective or a slightly different look at the grammar that we've just been looking at. So as you get more and more familiar with text, you'll get to know these little critters are all the characters that are that are talked about in the activities. They just crack me up. But anyway, Tex is the main guy. He's an armadillo. And he has a whole story. There's a page that you can go to read about all the little characters if you want to. Just makes it sound like it's a kid, but it's like a kid's site. But it's from University of Texas, so, and it really is a good site. So voilà. Très bien. On va regarder. So this time we're actually picking between the three verbs. So this is a really good activity to do as you're starting out with these. Sometimes you will see an infinitive here, which you know now that all three of these can be used with infinitives, so that doesn't really give you a clue. You need to look at the rest of the vocab. A lot of the time, sometimes the vocab on text might be something you haven't seen. Again, don't let it throw you. We'll go through these and kind of translate them. I'm not going to do the whole thing in the interest of time. Mais voilà. So texte, devoir, vouloir, pouvoir, une cigarette. So think about each one, which one's going to make the most sense. And I'm going to try to get my dialog box showing. Yay! Okay, good. So which one makes the most sense? Voilà, c'est très bien, Brianna. Tex veut une cigarette, n'est-ce pas? Bête. Alors, so a couple of these would be correct grammatically here, but probably one is going to make a little more sense than the others. Alors, so there's one we can take out immediately. Probably not going to need devoir, right? She has to go out with Tex, unless she's just like so madly in love with him that she has to. Peut works grammatically. Which one makes a little more sense? Voilà. D'accord? So peut, depending on the context, sure, peut would be fine. In fact, devoir would be okay too, so we could actually use any of the three. Without any context, vouloir sounds a little more natural in this sentence, but that's the only reason why my head went to it first. You could think up a context for pouvoir to make sense or for devoir to make sense. Just like I said, Bette is so in love with Tex, she has to go out with him, right? Or she can go out with Tex, or she could go out with Joe, or, you know, something like that. So we could think up any kind of context that we wanted to make any of those make sense. Vouloir makes a tiny bit more sense without any context. Joe Bob. This one's kind of a huge hint. Argent. Vous vous rappelez de ce que ça veut dire argent? Money, d'accord? So which one right away is probably going to have to do with money? Alors, devoir, c'est le plus logique pour l'argent, d'accord? So I'm going to use devoir. How am I going to conjugate it for Joe Bob? Joe Bob. Joe Bob. Il doit beaucoup d'argent à la banque. So, devoir is the only one. Oh, I'm going to take that back. Devoir and vouloir can be used with nouns. Pouvoir can't. Pouvoir is virtually always going to be with another infinitive. So, just since this was money. And also, if it's vouloir, there's no reason for there to be an A. C'est un peu bizarre. Alors, Edouard. So this one too, there are 2 or 3 different ones that would, well, all 3 would work grammatically, but there's one that's a little bit more logical given that we don't have a context. Voilà, il ne peut pas. Très bien. Il ne peut pas courir très vite, n'est-ce pas? Did you just have your talkie thing on, Brianna? Am I like, I forget how to use this. I think I can still hear you guys if you use your talkie thing. And I'm using mine. But I can't remember.
1, 2, 3.
Ah, très bien, c'est super.
Oui.
I saw a little bubble next to you.
Do you want me to save them?
Oh, you can if you want to. You
Okay.
don't have to. I just saw the little bubble. There was a little bubble next to your name for a second, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's probably trying to talk, and I probably have to turn off my thing or something. Because I couldn't remember for sure if both could happen at the same time. But you can totally say them or not. It's totally fine, y'all. Alors, les étudiants. Alors, celui-là aussi, devoir, vouloir, ou pouvoir. There's one that's a little more logical than the others.
Les étudiants peuvent.
Voilà, ils peuvent. Très bien. So pouvoir and vouloir are a little funny with the pronunciation on the boot. You're going to have an E sound. So pouvoir, veulent, je veux dire, peuvent, veulent, je veux, tu peux, etc. So think about the OO sound. Let's do another little example here. Think about the OO sound when you have the OU, right? So vouloir, voulez, par exemple, pouvez, par exemple. But if you have the EU, it's going to be an E, kind of like with je, d'accord? Or think of heureux, d'accord? And there's some keys that'll help you remember. Texte, my feet are falling asleep, just a minute. Okay. Texte. Alors, là, il y a peut-être un qui est un peu plus logique. But pretty much all 3 would work grammatically again. So is there one that seems more logical?
Texte doit écrire. Écrire.
Voilà, il doit, peut-être. Surtout puisque c'est les nonnes. That's funny. As soon as we see nuns, we get the idea of obligation. Like his old teachers at the Catholic school, he has to write a card to them. It's really funny. Très bien. Alors, il doit écrire une carte postale aux nonnes de Lyon. Cory et Fiona ne... Oh, this is funny. I don't remember if we had any of the place prepositions. I know we didn't have them in 102. Anyway, sous, do you guys remember what this means? Sous? It's a location
Under.
preposition. Sorry?
Under.
Under. Voilà. So, Cory et Fiona vivre sous l'eau. To live underwater. So... Ils ne peuvent pas, n'est-ce pas? Ils ne peuvent pas vivre sous l'eau, pardon. Très bien. That one makes me laugh every time. I always forget it's in here. Alors, Cory. This one, there's a couple. I would say there are 2 that were equally logical here since we don't have a context. Voler. Vous savez ce que c'est voler? This was in your voyage. I think we had that vacation vocab thing, didn't we? One lesson last semester.
To fly.
Voilà, to fly. So, and they don't mean literally, because none of these guys have wings. They are all little animals, but none of them have wings. Most of them are little critters like that. So, so they mean in a plane, but there are a couple that are equally logical for this one.
Pour?
Voilà. Il peut voler ou bien il veut voler. Moi, je pense que tous les deux, c'est égal euh, à égalité pour le logique. So either one would be fine. We don't have enough of a context to know. Et puis on va faire numéro 9 et puis je pense qu'on va s'arrêter. Alors nous, this one
Toi?
has. Comment?
Devant.
Devons, très bien. Nous devons respecter les animaux, n'est-ce pas? Alors, très bien. Voilà. Ben, il y en a que 3 qui restent. Let's go ahead and finish and then we'll. Les amis. There are
Voul?
two. Comment?
Voul?
Voilà. Veulent aller à la plage tous les week-ends. Edouard, hé les copains, qu'est-ce que vous.
Vous?
Vous.
Voulez. Ah.
You're
Je
almost
voulais le
right.
conjuguer.
Voulez. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez
Voulez.
faire? Très bien. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez faire ce soir? Et puis, Tex n'est pas en classe aujourd'hui. There's a typo. Aujourd'hui, il. This is a really typical use of this verb. So.
Toi?
Doit. Il doit être malade. So we do this all the time with the same expression in English. We say, oh, so and so's not here, he must be sick, or he must be running late, or he must have gotten stuck in Greenville, or whatever. So that's a really, really, really close usage to what we do for the same verb. So those are always easy to remember because your head is going to latch onto those easy because it knows intuitively how to use it that way. So devoir is used that way a lot. And we saw that other example. Let me pull up my little impromptu blackboard again. We saw that other example when they were talking about it in the past tense also during the PowerPoint. You say, oh, par exemple, elle a dû avoir un accident ou quoi que ce soit. N'est-ce pas? Oh, she's late, she must have had an accident. So they use the same idea as we do with that verb to talk about something that might have happened or must have happened. So those are always easy for your head to latch onto since it's such a close usage with us, even though it's a pretty figurative thing to say. Alors, très bien. Voila. So as I said, we went really, really fast today, and it's not always going to be this long of a lesson. But we got through everything and we got a little bit of practice on everything. So I will link. I made myself a little note so that I don't forget. I want to make sure. Yeah. I made a little note so I don't forget to link the text stuff on the onto GoView for you. And I'll go ahead and link this page for you as well. And I'll just put a little note on it so everybody knows that there might be some dead links. Voila. So jump in on VHL on the super site and yell if you have any problems. I know there are a couple of other emails still pending, so I'm going to go attack those in a little while here. And for the time being, maybe for the whole semester, I don't know, I'm going to be posting YouTube videos as well as the having the recordings on the Blackboard Collaborate, just because I know sometimes it's easier just to go straight to YouTube and listen to it there or watch it there. So also because I'm paranoid that Blackboard Collaborate is going to not be friendly to me the whole time like it was last semester. So I've been recording them on Camtasia as well the whole time. So that's our fail-safe. Anyway, je vous souhaite bonne soirée. Et je vais fermer la classe. Did you guys have any more questions or anything before we go?
Question about the textbook?
Yeah. What's your question?
Are we going to have any homework or activities due in the textbook?
Probably not, although that stuff is always there for you guys to work on for practice. And we'll do a fair amount of them during the classes. And that's part of the reason that I don't want to assign them as homework is just because you have plenty of stuff in the workbook anyway. And you're just like last semester, you're going to have an average of 20 activities to do a week. So you've got plenty to work on already with the ones that are actually in the workbook section and the lab book section. But you've always got the textbook ones to fall back on for extra practice, and we will try to hit those in the classes. And most of the time, we won't have this much to cover. We'll be able to hit more of the activities too. So, but those are great for just checking to see if if you more or less understand what's going on. You can check on those before you jump in on the supersite stuff, or at the same time, or save them and use them as you're getting ready for the exams or for the quizzes or whatever. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Merci.
Je vous en prie. Alors, bonne soirée, hein, les filles, et allez au lit, hein. Faut pas vous tarder, faut pas vous fatiguer, ne travaillez pas trop et tout ça, d'accord? Voilà, à la prochaine! Hmm.